You have the chanting in the chanting book, or you can just sit quietly. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Actually, we haven't turned on the mic. Can you do that for me? So there is a. So you uncover that cloth and you find a. Maybe I should do that. Okay. It's difficult to explain like the sutra. That. This. Thank you. That's okay, the Buddha will not mind. Buddhang saranang gacchami, Dhammang saranang gacchami, Sanghang saranang gacchami, Dutiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami, Dutiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami, Dutiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami, Tatiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami, Tatiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami, Tatiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami. Panati pata veramani sikkhapadam samadhiyami. Adinnādāna veramani sikkhapadam samadhiyami. Kāmesu micchācārā veramani sikkhapadam samadhiyami. Musāvādā veramani sikkhapadam samadhiyami. Surāmeraya majjapamā daṭṭhānā veramani sikkhapadam samadhiyami. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. That's enough for the chanting part, and we will do some few minutes of silence. you have the continuation from the previous week, last Monday, but you also have to have the new printed version that I gave out today. In that you find additional sutras added at the end. So this is number 7. We will begin with number 7 today, and we will see how far we can go. This is about the monkey. The Pali term for that is Makkaṭa. So this is called Makkaṭa Sutta, the discourse on monkey. I remember in Kandy in Sri Lanka, I was teaching in this monastic school before, as I was finishing university. So there are about 400 monks studying there. This is Asgiriya Monastic Training Center. So I was a teacher, and we had a monthly assembly. And I had to kind of give concluding remarks to these monks, and they were silent, and suddenly this bus came and started turning in the compound. It's unusual that a bus would come, especially at that time, to the compound of the temple. So all the novice monks started looking at it instead of paying attention to what was happening on the stage. So to discipline them, I said, that's not monk's nature, that is monkey nature. And they still remember that. And I also remember the moment. So this is monks and monkeys, completely different characters, but we will find out what this says about monkeys. So this is, you should remember that this is connected to what we discussed before about mindfulness, okay? Bhikkhus, which means monks, in the Himalayas, the king of mountains, there are rugged and uneven zones, like rocky and uneven zones where neither monkeys nor human beings can go. So no humans can go there, no monkeys can go. There are rocky and uneven zones where monkeys can go, but not human beings. So high above the ground, monkeys can jump and reach to certain places, but humans cannot do that, so humans have no access to such places. Then there is a third place. There are even and delightful regions, very nice regions, where both monkeys and human beings can go. There, along the monkey trails, hunters set out traps of pitch, which is a gluey thing. The Pali word is latu lepang latu. The Sinhala word is latu. The Pali word is lepang or denti, the activity of putting some glue, sticky thing. It's just like the thing that comes from the jackfruit. When you cut it, you have the white gluey thing. They use it for different purposes. It's a natural glue. So it's something like that for catching monkeys. They do that even now to catch it's like a mouse trap. Very painful, it's not, I never recommend doing that. When they get glued to it, they try to release themselves from that, they get stuck further. So it's the same story here. Buddha must have seen this himself as he was wandering from place to place. Those monkeys who are not foolish and frivolous, so frivolous means not having any serious purpose, like they are not strongly oriented into that goal. When they see the pitch, avoid it from afar. So they are smart. They understand that there is a danger ahead. But a monkey who is foolish and frivolous, again the word frivolous is used for even the smart, the foolish ones, approaches the pitch and seizes it with his hand. He gets caught there. Now he only put one hand. Thinking, I will free my hand, he seizes it with his other hand. Now both hands are stuck. He gets caught there, thinking, I will free both hands, he seizes it with his foot. He gets caught there. Thinking, I will free both hands and my foot, he seizes it with his other foot. He gets caught there. Thinking, I will free both hands and feet, he applies his muzzle to it. He gets caught there. Thus, monks, that monkey, trapped at 5 points, lies there screeching, crying for help. Monkey is crying. If you have heard, he's in agony and he's asking for help. He has met with calamity and disaster, and the hunter can do with him as he wishes. The hunter spears him, which means he puts the monkey through a stick, fastens him to that same block of wood. Let the monkey die in that block of wood. Of course, the hunter will not feed the monkey, right? And goes off where he wants. So it is, monks, when one strays outside one's own resort into the domain, so it is, like same outcome. Monks, when you stray outside your own resort into the domain of others, when you are not in safe places, you get caught, you are in trouble, you don't know the area, you don't know the person, you are trapped, and it's when you are in unfamiliar places, you feel helpless. And now this is again saying, just like the previous story where the bird went back into his own domain, where the hawk could not attack the bird. So, and you find a very interesting word here at the end. Let's get there. Therefore, monks, do not stray outside your own resort into the domain of others. So this is kind of inviting you to regard your own sense spheres as other stuff. It's your own, it's your eye, it's your ear, it's your nose, but it's other stuff. Don't go there. Like, treat it as not yours. Mara will gain access to those who stray outside their own resort into the domain of others. Mara will get a hold on them. How will you interpret that wording? Like, Mara is the word. Mara is what?
Like a temptress.
Yeah. What happens when you are in that situation? When you are caught? When you go to that domain, what happens? You get caught and
You go off the path of mindfulness.
you go off the path of mindfulness. You are not going to escape from the cycle of death and birth. That is Mara. Right? When you are indulging in sensual pleasures, that means you have given up your path. You are letting the birth cycle, the death cycle, to do whatever it wants. You are getting carried away in the stream of samsara, in the ocean of samsara. You don't know where you are headed. That is what it really means. Is when you look at the deeper meaning, when you are watching, you are indulging in stuff, means you are kind of surrendering to the evil one, to the birth and death cycle, to samsara, in other words. Clear enough? So Mara will gain access. So means Mara has now, you have given a spot for Mara to come and sit in you. And the next part is repeated from the previous sutra. And what is not a bhikkhu's own resort, but the domain of others? It is the 5 courts of sensual pleasure. So your own 5 courts of sensual pleasure is the domain of others. It's not yours. It's an interesting view, right? Interesting perspective to have. So what this is what is not big. So let's. I've taken some notes so you can recall the previous sutra. So what the Buddha goes on to say is, you have the ditto marks here. Forms cognizable by the eye. This is one domain, the one place where Mara can have access. Forms cognizable by the eye. There are desirable, lovely, agreeable, pleasing, sensually enticing, tantalizing. These are the words in the translation. I will also go to the Pali words. Chakku viññaya rupa, forms cognizable by the eye. Lovely, itta, agreeable, kanta, pleasing, manapa, sensually enticing, piyarupa, tantalizing, kamupasanghita, and rajaniya. Maybe they missed one word here. Desirable, lovely, agreeable. Anyway, so this is repeated with sounds, odors, the tangibles, the tastes that you taste. So called tactile sensations. And this also includes the thinking aspect. But here you only find the 5, the 5 courts of sensual pleasures. When you are caught in any of these, you start getting caught in the thought stream and you are attracting it. So, move in your own resort, because in your own ancestral domain. So, sake pettike visaye, that's the Pali for your own ancestral domain, what you inherited from your father, so father here is the Buddha. And he's addressing monks here. So monks, when they enter the order, they take the Buddha as their father and the mother. So that's why Mamayana is important. It's an important Pali term, where when the Buddha gives a talk, you feel like he's talking to you alone. He was that significant in his skillful teaching. Obviously there were occasions that the Buddha only had 1-2 people visiting, so it's easy to understand their problem and address the situation. So then there's one focus. But if he were to address a bunch of monks, then he has a common theme, and then he addresses that, and monks practice accordingly. So that makes sense, right? Move in your own resort, in your own ancestral domain. So what is this? Like, Mara will not gain access to those who move in their own resort, in their own ancestral home. Mara will not get a hold on them. So then he goes on to explain, like, what is this real ancestral home? It is the 4 establishments of mindfulness, 4 satipatthanas. These 4 are discussed again and again in different sutras. The main one is called the Mahasatipatthana Sutra, and it has been kind of repeatedly mentioned in other books. Like this is the connected discourses. You find the Satipatthana Sutra in long discourses. You find one in middle length discourses, and there is one everywhere. This is like you find this now in here, but we also have a whole chapter assigned on mindfulness in this book, because the Buddha constantly spoke about the importance of monks dwelling in 4 establishments of mindfulness. So what are the 4? Establishing mindfulness in body. For example, you are observing your in-breath and out-breath. That's something to do with your body. And then you are walking forward, and walking, you turn or you walk backward, or you look at a certain direction. In doing all these activities, you observe what your mind is doing. Sometimes you can run like a mad hatter, pulling your hair out, and there you are not really aware that you are running. You are just distraught in your mind. So basically, if you observe what happens in your mind when you do these activities, there you have some gatekeeper that is your mindfulness, that does not allow intruders into the mind and take your belongings away. You get the point? So the guard is mindfulness. So it's still that, your 4 postures like sitting, standing, walking and lying down. In doing these postures, you are aware, fully aware of the state of your mind. Do we have an extra copy for him? Yes, here. Yeah. And again, in terms of the body, you can go a little deeper to observe the 32 parts of your body. What are the 32 parts? Like body, the head hair, body hair, and your skin, your teeth. Now, these 32 have now become objects of your meditation. You observe what is, that these things exist. It's like you open a container and you find things in there. This body has these things, and you're like, okay, whatever. This, when you separate the stuff, when you put, this is gruesome, but when you put things in different places separated, you don't say that that is my body. Those are different entities, put in different places, different baskets. It's like a bunch of stuff. It's like a car. When the car is what is the word for that? Like when you disjoin things, stuff from the car, you find the steering wheel in one place and wheels somewhere else, and you don't see a car in it. It's not functional in that stage. So it's just that little understanding that you don't we own it until we are taught otherwise, that this thing that we have been associating so far in our life seems like it's just a piece of junk now, like garbage, different filthy stuff that you don't now no longer need to associate with. Again, and then you go into, like, you break these 32 into 4 elements, like earth element, especially the bones are earth element, water element, the bloodstream and moisture, tears, stuff. And then you have air element. In every cell you find air, in the air you breathe, in the lungs, in every part of your body you find air. And I think 70-something% of the body is water, and some, whatever the percentage, 6% maybe is air. And then the heat element. Heat is a must for your survival. When you are frozen, when you are, you die. You don't feel the body, the vitality disappear. So you start like this. All these exercises are as ways to establish mindfulness in body. So you are becoming more aware, and you refine that understanding about the body, and you stay unassociated, and then you have some break, some freedom to understand the external and internal processes. What happens outside happens inside, and what is the relationship between these two activities. When you start observing, you simply become little analytical, and you are now going deeper into the mind, deeper into establishing your mindfulness, and it simply switches to other establishings of mindfulness, like establishing mindfulness. So now I was talking about establishing mindfulness in body, and then you switch to feelings, pleasant feelings, painful feelings, neither painful nor pleasant feelings. The more you observe, better you understand that these feelings are the only ways you can group these feelings, the feelings that you feel. And then you also kind of start seeing the nature of the mind, the lustful nature of the mind full of hatredness, and deluded mind, an exalted mind that is expanding, contracted mind, the mind that is shrunk. So you feel these ways during, in certain points, like especially when you are puzzled about something, there your mind is contracted. But when you feel joy in meditation, your mind is expanded, you feel wide open, and you don't feel narrow in your body. So that's about the mind, different states of the mind. And then you start observing further about different stuff that block you from progressing into deeper stages, like 5 hindrances. For example, sensual desire itself is a block, it's a stumble block. And then you start observing anger a little further, like sloth and torpor. Start seeing doubt as a problem, and restlessness. So you start seeing like how these arise and how these disappear, and what more you have to do, in order to be completely free from these states. So when you go in that order, you don't really have to go in an order, because you can begin from anywhere. Depends where you have been practicing. You start seeing the process very clearly, and start not what's the word for that? Like not identifying with any of these. Like what you did with the car, it's no longer a car. You are starting small. You are starting to see different events now. So the sense of self dissolves with wisdom that arises from this exercise. That is a place where Mara have no access. When you are staying within the boundaries of establishing mindfulness in body, feelings, mind, and different natures of the mind, like mind and hindrances, 7 awakening factors, 4 noble truths, 5 aggregates, stuff like that. Should discuss about 5 aggregates, maybe next time. Do you know what 5 aggregates are? Now we are on that topic. Can someone tell me? So we can feel happy that we have discussed something here on Mondays. Form. Feelings. Perceptions. Mental formations. Consciousness. So aggregates of form, aggregates of feelings, aggregates of perceptions, aggregate of mental formations, and aggregate of consciousness, like eye consciousness, ear consciousness. So these are aggregates, like groups. Now you're learning this in English, so it takes a while for you to digest this, and it's okay. Don't judge yourself for not remembering things in order. You don't have to. It's just knowledge. You have it in books. You just Google what 5 aggregates are if you don't remember. So, okay. So having taught about all the 4 that I just explained, this is, at the last line, look at the last line. This is the bhikkhu's resort, his own ancestral domain. Resort, gocharo, is the Pali word for that. Gocharo is like, this is where you have safety. Just like, the monkeys, this is where you have safety. You stay in those places, and then hunters cannot come and catch you. His own ancestral domain, this is where you belong. Sake pettiko, sako pettiko visayo, his own sako, ancestral domain, pettiko visayo. Okay. That is that. So we can go to the next one. The cook, the incompetent cook is the first one, and then there's a part 2, the competent cook, the bad one and the good one. Monks, suppose a foolish, incompetent, unskillful cook were to present a king or a royal minister with various kinds of curries. So he's serving for the king and or a royal minister, high-ranking people. So different kinds of curries, soupe. So these curries, they taste sour, bitter, pungent, sweet, sharp. Sweet is madura. Sharp is like kara. Mild is like kiul rasa in single. Salty and bland. Yeah. Lacking strong features. It's just like water. No colors. So he serves all these stuff. That foolish, incompetent, unskillful cook does not pick up the sign of his own master's preference. Which means in Pali, sakassa bhattu nimittangna ugganhati. So bhattu is the person who is receiving this food. Bhattagga is where food is served. Where Buddha says, Anujanami bhikkave bhattagge anumoditu. Monks, after eating, give a talk. That's why when we go to meals, we give a talk after eating, because of that advice of the Buddha. So just like bhattu here means, the person who received the food. So this cook, say he's a chef, he just cooks different stuff, but he has to also listen to the recipient of the food, like the receiver, who later says, that sour curry you made is good. So when you know that, you cook that again, like that dish, until he start praising something else. Monks are careful in that aspect. Monks never say that this curry is good, because monks start getting so much of that. So we don't. Also, it's just like part of the disciplinary code for monks. You just eat whatever is given you. You don't go after tasty stuff, because your life has to be frugal, simple. Okay. So because this cook doesn't think very much, he doesn't really know how to progress in his job. um, he doesn't think this way. Today this curry pleased my master, or he reached for this one, or he took a lot of this one, or he spoke in praise of this one, or the sour curry pleased my master today, or he reached for the sour curry. So all the curries are repeated here. So that foolish, incompetent, unskillful cook does not gain any gifts such as clothing, wages, or bonuses. Because he's not like paying attention to what curries his master prefers, right? For what reason? Because that cook does not pick up the sign of his own master's preference, right? So two monks here, some foolish, incompetent, unskillful monks, dwells contemplating the body in the body, ardent, clearly comprehending, mindful, having removed covetousness and displeasure in regard to the world. So this seems like he's doing a good job, right? But while he dwells contemplating the body in the body, his mind does not become concentrated. So there is a problem. He does the job, but his mind doesn't get concentrated. His corruptions are not abandoned. He still adheres to the past habits of getting attracted to things that distract him. He does not pick up that sign. So, which means he does not pick up the sign of renouncing these pleasures. He's never appeased with the thirst of sensual pleasure. He continues to, indulge and further indulge, while also he stays observing the body, but that doesn't seem to help. Like the cook who can cook different stuff, but to progress in the path, to progress, to get bonuses, he doesn't understand the taste of the minister or the king. So he's just a cook. So this is like he's just a monk who does these contemplations, but this monk does not progress. So now carefully look at the words. The monk dwells contemplating the body in the body, kaya kayanupassī viharati. Ardent, atapi, clearly comprehending, sampajano, mindful, satima. So ardent, clearly comprehending, mindful. So these are like qualifications you must have, right, when you enter to the practice. You have to be ardent, make extra effort to be alert. Clearly comprehending, which means you are seeing things clearly as they rise and pass away in your experience. Say, for example, you start looking at things, say you see a flower, and then you start seeing how this image arose in you. And then you look away and you start seeing something else, or you pay attention to the sounds, and then how did that arise? And how did the previous one disappear? What was the connection? So this you are clearly comprehending the connections, right? So you gain wisdom. You start observing the process. Mindful. So in order to establish mindfulness, you should have mindfulness. Otherwise, what are you going to establish when you don't have it? So it's just like when you radiate loving kindness, you have to have it before you radiate it to others. Before you give something to someone, you should first have it in your hand. And then the last very important qualification is having removed covetousness. This is a word even mentioned in Bible, right? Covetousness. Extra greedy for things that are not yours. Which means you are trying to gain something. imagine like someone really, wanting things that you cannot reach to that, and that is covetousness. You cannot get the love of that person, this person. So your mind is restless. You are not the same person when you stay around that person. You are distracted. You don't know what you are supposed to do. That's because you are controlled by covetousness, extra greedy. The Pali word for that is abhijja. You know that, not avijja. There's a slight difference. Avijja is ignorance. Abhijja is strong motivation to have something, strong impulse to get something that you cannot get, but you desire it, you want it, and you can't sleep because of that strong desire. So see the difference between avijja and abhijja. Avijja is like you see the truth but you ignore it. You hear the truth, you ignore it. You are full of ignorance. You keep ignoring. Don't come to the sutra discussion on Mondays. You don't care the temple exists. You don't care the monks. Whatever the monks do is monks' business. So completely ignoring us, our presence. So again, part of ignorance. And this, having removed covetousness, and you also need to remove displeasure in regard to the world. So, domanassa is the word for displeasure. Sumanassa means happy mind. Dummanassa means, unhappy mind. Domanassa. So, unhappy for some reason, right? Unhappy because you are agitated, because you are arrogant, you are this. Arrogant is the Sinhala word, right? Arrogant. So, while he dwells contemplating the body in the body, his mind does not become concentrated. Although he does these things, his mind seems not to be concentrated, not entering to any composure, ekaggata, samadhi. His corruptions are not abandoned. So corruptions, defilements, impurities in the mind are not abandoned. To abandon them means you have such a freedom. To be free from lust, to be free from hatred, to be free from delusion, such freedom. It's wonderful. He does not pick up that sign. He is not there. He's not reaching to that point. He keeps falling back to the trap. So, in terms of feelings, again the same thing. Mind, and then the mind objects. These are the four establishments of the mind. Did you get it? Or did I confuse you? So we came to the end of establishing mindfulness in the body, and then you find he dwells contemplating feelings in feelings, mind in mind. So that's the feelings is the second establishment of mindfulness, Vedananupassana. The third is mind in mind, so Chittanupassana, and then phenomena in phenomena, Dhammanupassana. Same qualifications: ardent, fully aware, clearly comprehending, mindful, having removed covetousness and displeasure in regard to the world. This is Bhikkhu Bodhi's translation. That foolish, incompetent, unskillful monk does not gain pleasant dwellings in this very life. Means his life is not easy. His life is full of difficulties. Nor does he gain mindfulness and clear comprehension. For what reason? Because, monks, that foolish, incompetent, unskillful monk does not pick up the sign of his own mind. That monk is not getting the point. It's just like the spoon that you use to stir the curry that you make, the spoon never understands the taste of the curry. That's the simile Buddha used. Anyway, we'll stop there. My plan was to continue to the next one, but I think we don't have to. Because the compete and cook part is the opposite of what you just discussed before, so you don't have to repeat that part. The next part, please read it. It's a little longer. If we start it now, we may not be able to reach to the finish line. But that last one, I must say, is very interesting. Buddha was 80 years old when he taught this. He got severely ill. He had to postpone his death for 10 months, and you find that story here. Well, the 10-month story is found in some other book, but this is the occasion that he went into a state of mind so he could stay free from the body. And when the body started, when it healed, he started, regaining his strength. He didn't want to just pass away without informing that to monks. But his illness was very strong. So again, he teaches about mindfulness. And he says, I have taught everything, I haven't kept anything for myself, no reservations. And you will, go there and read. But so, which side are you in? Monkey's side or the cook's side? Or which cook do you prefer to? The good cook understands the science, understands where to go, understands when wisdom arises and goes in that direction. Therefore, the good cook gets all the good gifts, bonuses. So, be a good cook tonight. You will have, your husband will praise you, at least. But what it really means is like you be a, good example in your own practice. You take less, you start learning and continue progressing in your path. Right? When you continue progressing in your path, you can see more signs of it developing. You can see, I used to be angry 5 years ago. I'm no longer that way. I used to be disoriented 5 years ago. I no longer feel that way. Looks like something is right with me. Usually people always say something is wrong with us. But now you need to say something is right with me. Something is right with my life. Something is right with my mind. Something is right with the people I am with. Something is right with the food I am taking. It seems like I am taking good care of my body. But living in Sake Pettike Vise, in your ancestral domain, means you are constantly practicing mindfulness. And again, what is mindfulness?
Moment and not getting caught up in thoughts and mind.
Living in the moment, not getting caught up in the thoughts in the mind. That's her explanation.
Being clearly aware in the present moment.
Being clearly aware in the present moment. You also use the word moment, right? Did you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Any more explanations? Vimal Mahathir?
What you do, be aware of the present moment, and
Be aware of the present moment.
And it should fit in with Buddha's orders, like you are not doing yourself or someone else harm.
Mm-hmm.
So you are not eager to do anything, or you don't look for lust or and go ahead, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that.
That's a whole sermon. Very good. You?
Like not getting distracted with the 5, 6 senses that you have.
Mm-hmm.
Think straight, not go there.
Yeah.
Not mind your business. Go.
Yes.
Only mind.
Yes. Right. You? Do you have any?
I'm just listening.
And you?
Just listening.
Just listening. So, oh yeah, you?
Oh.
Listening?
Paying attention.
Paying attention. It's very interesting. So different teachers have given like different interpretation. Do you have any thoughts about mindfulness? Anyone else? We need to use that technique. Like after you speak, you say anyone else, so the whole group is invited to say something. You can observe, the momentary thing, is a tricky word, right? How do you get to the moment? That question comes when you are teaching this word to someone who never heard that word before. Like, oh, moment. How the moment you try to focus, and the moment is gone. But you are right, though. That's sort of like the path and the fruition place where you reach to that place, and wonderful when you are focused in the moment and you are just left with mind, emptiness. Mind is free from chatter, thoughts, distractions. So again the burglar story, someone who comes to steal stuff from your house, and you have a gatekeeper. You advise the gatekeeper to watch your belongings, but the gatekeeper is told the exact words you use is to be mindful. So he's mindful when the burglar comes, mindful when he loads the stuff to the truck, mindful when he leaves. So you come back only to find out that your stuff are gone. So you ask, like, what happened? Well, you told me to be mindful, so I was mindful when he came, I was mindful when he loaded the stuff, I was mindful when he left. Wrong advice, right? So there, I think, so a little bit more emphasis should be given to that activity. Preventative awareness, something, prevent, in the ordinary life we don't prevent, we don't renounce. The wisdom never arises if you do not block things. If you do not, like the word you use, like guard. The things that the defilements are constantly looking for a chance to arise. And the wisdom has to really strongly, support in the establishing of mindfulness. So when wisdom is there, you know how things arise, you know how things remained, you know what you are supposed to do in order to get rid of that thing that arose. And you also understand how to get rid of it permanently. So now what is mindfulness? It has a special function in it, right? It does. Yeah?
So you're aware, you're here now, and in that way, you're also able to
guard against the temptations
Yeah.
that come and
Yes.
not fall into a trap.
Yes, and then you are now, you have refined your state of mind, and further you go, you are free from a lot of stuff, because stillness arise, samadhi arise, freedom arise, joy from freedom from sensual pleasures arise. Now you are with those things, and they can arise in any moment, or then momentary, from this moment to another, you are fully aware, staying in the present, not necessarily the moment, but that staying alone is just like progressing moment to moment. You are like, I'm happy. Perhaps this is momentary awareness, but you don't care. Doesn't matter, because you have now left the domain of the evil one, domain of the Mara. So you have to have, the duty of mindfulness has to be clearly understood. Otherwise, the cook's problem.
And for the mindfulness, as for a Buddhist, I think apart from that, it should be fitting with the Buddha's teaching, right? Whether I'm doing it a harm for anyone else or myself.
Oh yeah, that part. Yeah, you can be mindful in the wrong thing, like killing others.
Exactly.
So, in the Buddha's teachings, it has to be according to what the Buddha taught. In that, he always remained, in the area of what is happening within. Don't go to another planet to find the truth. It's within you. So within you means it is, within this seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, physical sensations and thinking experiences, which when you are beginning to observe that you are not harming anybody, you are clearing the path for yourself, for your own freedom, for your own liberation. Okay? It's 8:29. Perfect time to stop. So thank you for coming, and we will meet you again next week with the discourse on illness that the Buddha had. Please bring this back. Okay. Can you stop the video? Happy meditation.
No.